Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Pulse, Regen Strategic's Politics and Policy podcast. Again, I'm joined by Libby Lyons, our Strategic Counsel. Welcome. Liberation Day in Trump's language.
Goodness me, yeah, what a day.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, these sort of days are generally followed up by something more shocking the next day. So we'll wait and see what's in store from the White House. We're recording a couple of weeks on from the state election. The count's finally finished. It's going to be investigated, the conduct of the election count. But as the attention sort of turns to the return of state parliament, Labor will have 46 seats under a newly elected Premier Roger Cook. The Liberal Party 7 seats. So they will probably feel that they're a little bit underweight in terms of what they're anticipating, but I think they'll certainly be rejuvenated from what they were this time 4 years ago, and 6 seats to the National Party, who obviously did very well in certain areas of regional WA with a fairly targeted set of issues. Feels like it'll be a more lively lower house this time round.
Oh, I think it will be, and I think we've got a few colourful personalities going in for the blue team. So I think that will definitely add a bit of vim and vigour to debate, and much needed vim and vigour too. I think, there is the opposition in Western Australia for the last 4 years has been the West Australian, and that's not healthy. So, with 7 Liberal members, 6 Nats, I think, there is far greater likelihood that we're going to see some decent debate, and the Cook government held to account on a lot more issues than they have been in the past.
Yeah, and obviously the upper house will look a little more balanced in terms of a representation of the statewide vote, with those changes to bring in one vote, one value. So there will be some additional members of both the Liberal and National Party rooms, respectively. Basil Zemplis is the elected member of Churchlands, the leader of the WA Liberal Party, and we presume leader of the opposition. Obviously, some of those joint party room decisions are being finalised. What do you think he's going to bring to 42nd Parliament of Western Australia?
Oh, colour. Yeah. Definitely colour. I mean, the one thing that you can say about Basil is he's got a big, big personality, and he's not afraid to say what he thinks. Yeah. So I think if I was Basil, I would be taking a little bit of time to settle in, to get to understand how things work. It's a big new job for him, and I think learn as much as you can from your deputy leader. Libby's been there for a while and has a lot, I think, that she can teach Basil, and I think Basil needs to sit down and listen and learn, and then once he feels that he's got his land legs, he can let fly. And I think that's, we'll see, as I say, a lot of colour and a lot of debate and a lot more accountability for the Cook government. And I think, that's important. That's what we need in a democracy. One-party states are not good for any of us.
Yeah, well, we weren't quite a one-party state last time.
Close to.
It came mightily close, and that is the, I guess, representation of what the vote share was in 2021. So along with a refreshed, reset, rebuilt opposition, I don't know the term they're quite landing on at the moment, but obviously a good degree of change. But also on the government side, there's a number of new additions to the WA cabinet, some tweaks to portfolio responsibilities, and it sounds a little dry, but some changes to the way in which the government agencies function, so machinery of government changes that I think signal really where the priorities of the Premier and the Cabinet lie in terms of not wasting the opportunity afforded to them with a rare third term in Western Australian politics. It doesn't happen a lot. But that focus around the energy transition, decarbonisation, diversifying the economy, clearly, the appointments of Amber Jade Sanderson, Stephen Dawson, and a bevy of ministers responsible for regional priority setting and policies and funding commitments. Clearly, there's an intent to address, I guess, Labor's perceived lower vote share in the regions.
Yeah, I think the economic diversification is really, really important. For too long, we've relied too heavily on the resources sector. And whilst it looks at this stage that critical minerals have been, or some critical minerals have been set aside from Liberation Day tariffs, I think, we have to expect that we're after every boom there's a bust. So we have to prepare for that. And I think that that's a really very sensible strategy. And I think focusing a bit more on the regions and providing the regions with a little bit more of what they need is very important. I think the one thing I neglected to mention, of course, was the new Shadow Treasurer. When we talked about the leadership and Sandra Brewer, the new member for Cottesloe, being the Shadow Treasurer, I think was an inspired appointment. And I think we will see once she's got her feet under the table and learnt the ropes and whatever, I think we'll see some great sparring between her and Rita Saffioti. And which I think will be fantastic. She's a very smart woman, Sandra, and we shouldn't underestimate her.
Oh, no, I don't think anyone underestimates her ability to get across the brief. And, for a start, she'll be in the lower house, which is always going to be the appropriate place where you want those sort of
key roles,
chamber debates to occur. And as you said, that level of accountability and transparency is always a little bit difficult when ministers are in different parts of the parliament.
Exactly. It is. It's very hard.
I can only imagine there's a folder of statements by Sandra in her roles in Property Council where she perhaps has been quite praiseworthy of the WA government's policies. So I'm sure there'll be a period of time settling into the role where she'll have to, be faced with quotes being thrown back at her. But that's okay. That's all part of it.
Well, it's all part of the game, isn't it? And politics is not for the faint-hearted.
Nope.
So I think Sandra's up for it. She's got broad shoulders. She's a great listener. And she consults a lot. So I think we are going to see a star performer in Sandra. And I think it's, again, that's what a democracy needs. It needs great people, great thinkers, great performers, but also people that can get across the brief and hold people to account. And I think that we'll see that with Sandra. And again, I think we'll see some interesting sparring between the two women going forward, which is great.
Yeah. Well, Rita Saffioti as Treasurer, Minister for Transport and a range of other ministerial responsibilities hasn't shirked a fight.
No, she's not backward and coming forward at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, no, it'll be entertaining. Eyes will be on State Parliament from the 8th of April.
Yeah.
A bit
next
of an early
week.
return.
Goodness.
It sort of brings me to my next point, noting Sandra Brewer's election to the seat of Cottesloe. I was there earlier this morning, just meeting someone, and I noticed how different it is as a marginal seat. Federally, the signs are in front yards, on cars, absolutely everywhere. It's a real hotbed of activity that you don't normally associate with a leafy postcode.
No, it is. It's you can't escape it. There is nowhere in Curtin, I think, you can escape
incredible.
The fact that we've got a federal election and two very strong candidates. It, of course, is marginal, very marginal. I think 1.2%. Cheney won it by 1.2% the last time around. again, not on primary votes because she won it on preferences. So it's going to be a very, very interesting contest. I think Cheney is awash with money. She's spending a lot of money on social media. She's spending a lot of money on signage. She is the incumbent, which of course, accounts for quite a lot. Tom's a very, very strong candidate and he's working extraordinarily hard. His face and name are everywhere. It will be very, very close. If you look at what happened in the state seats that are within the Curtin electorate, you would say that he should win. But I think that it's going to be extraordinarily close, and I think it will come down to last counting. As I say, Celia Hammond won on primaries, but Kate Cheney got over the line on preferences. So let's watch this space. But I think we're in for a really very vigorous campaign for the next few weeks up until the 3rd of May.
Yeah. No, it definitely had that sense that it's all on the line, very visible, as I said, in that area of Perth. I'm obviously not tapped into the same algorithm, live in a different part of the city, so I'm not seeing the social media impact from either of those candidates, but I can understand it would be frenetic and maybe making people tune out a little bit because it just gets so much. And look, it's interesting because just looking at the Teal seats or the seats that the Teals have in other parts of Australia, it is very, very similar. It's a similar situation. There's a lot of skullduggery going on particularly over east in the seat of Kooyong. With the signs,
Monique Ryan and whatever. But there's I note that the Liberal Party have a very smart young person there who's coming up with fabulous strategies. So there's I think Amy Hamer is, I think, the name of the candidate there. So you'll see a poster of her, and next to it will be another poster saying, Monique Ryan, please leave this sign in situ. So, it is. But I think that same, it's not just Curtin.
No.
I think all over Australia in the seats where the Teals, the seats that the Teals are contesting, we're seeing that same sort of energy and vigour. In those seats as well. So the Teals are really, it's going to be very interesting to watch what happens this time around and whether it was just simply a one-off.
Yeah. I mean, you would think there's a level of advantage being an incumbent member, that level of visibility, connection, communication with your electorate, albeit a federal election. They are so large. So I don't know how individual candidates, let alone the members, manage to get around and know every pocket of their community. But similar to the state election, I do wonder if maybe a dynamic that could play out is that incumbency shelters any of the larger swings from occurring in a Curtin or a Kooyong, as you mentioned before. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It will be interesting. I think cost of living is killing everyone. And I think it depends on how well those messages from both sides hit home.
Yeah. The path for Peter Dutton and the coalition is an interesting straddle. I mean, they're attempting to, of course, win back, I think a bit of lost pride and just some fundamental paths to victory with the loss of those leafier seats in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. But then this focus on outer suburban areas, I mean, that clearly was what the budget reply by Angus Taylor and Peter Dutton was designed to do with...
Not that we got to hear much of it
No. Yeah, that
was a pretty low blow, I think.
You reckon that was deliberate? A 6 o'clock visit to the Governor General.
That was just anyway.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I'm speechless on that one. So,
well, it does. It could explain why there hasn't been as much made of that cut to the fuel excise levy. I mean, I thought on that night, and you always have a bit of a pulse of overestimating the impact of certain statements, how widely they're seen by the general public. But I thought it was a pretty clever, in all senses of the word, move to really target those outer suburban seats where commuters are facing an hour each way, and as you said, everything in their grocery basket, utility bills, insurance, school fees, they're all ratcheting up. And
it was interesting listening to Talkback after Dutton announced that, because that's exactly what people were saying. We don't care if it's for a year. We need some relief now.
Yeah.
We need relief now. And if that's going to give us some relief now, hopefully over the 12-month period things will get better, and there's a chance that interest rates will drop again, and that will give us a bit more money to come and go on. And that's what I was hearing, on Talkback, ABC Talkback too, surprisingly. Mm-hmm. So I think it was cutting through, and then, Albo did his bit and bang, we didn't hear much more.
He's entitled to call the election. He's the Prime Minister.
But hello. Traditionally, they've always been called on a Sunday.
Generally, it interrupts insiders and a morning coffee.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And I really did think that was a low blow. But hey,
all's fair in love and war.
Don't expect any different from Albo. So there we go.
You can pass that on.
I'll leave that to you, Pat. Rather not. No reason to meet him.
The momentum of the two campaigns, the two leaders, is interesting to observe, though. So I thought that probably was a cut-through policy on the night of that budget reply, just because it is so barefaced and obvious in terms of what it's looking to address. It perhaps hits households and individuals in a different way to tax cuts, which don't really make your way physically into your pocket or into your bank balance.
And $5 a week?
Yeah, but permanent. But again,
$5 a week.
A nuance to sell it, as opposed to, hey, this is going to be directly off the petrol bowser every time you fill up. Having said that, the polls, at least in the interim, and maybe it just hasn't picked up on the impact of those announcements, they do seem to be tightening and maybe showing Labor is slightly ahead. Is there a risk with the coalition campaign potentially, talking about that straddle between these traditionally Liberal, now Teal-held seats and a path through the outer suburbs to a majority? Is there a risk around moving from these cut-through policies that are winners to maybe spending time on some of the culture war, war on woke type elements that we seem to have imported from the US?
People aren't really thinking and worrying about wokeness too much at the moment. I think they're simply concerned about how they're going to pay their rent or how they're going to pay their mortgage. And I think that's what we'll see. We'll see more and more and more of those messages from both sides cutting through, or trying to get that cut through, because people are hurting, and even in the leafy suburbs, people are hurting and wondering what they can do next, how they can cut costs. Everybody's in the same boat, and I think that thanks to Mr. Trump and Liberation Day, we're looking down the barrel of a global recession, a nasty global recession. And things are going to get worse, not better. So, I'm worried more today about how things are going to look and how, where I'm going to be able to afford everything that, I need and want and whatever. Now, I'm a lot more worried about that today than I was yesterday.
Okay. Yep.
And I think that we can't just push this aside and laugh and say this is old, Donald up to his tricks again. This is a really, really serious global issue for us, and we will not. We just are not. We're part of it, whether we like it or not, and we're not in the position that we were pre-COVID to financially and economically to withstand a big blow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm concerned that, again, we've got a cash splash happening all over the show. We've got a huge deficit. We're not paying that deficit down, and we're promising more tax cuts, even if they are $5 a week. We're promising these things at a time where we need to be steadying ourselves for a big global meltdown economically.
A crunch.
And not, that's without all the geopolitical problems that we have as well. We're in pretty tough times, and they're going to get tougher.
Yeah.
And so I think that is absolutely going to be the focus of both camps. It has to be.
The household cost of living.
Absolutely.
Bring it right back to that. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think these things change. They ebb and flow through the course of a single day, let alone day to day and week to week. But I think there perhaps needs to be a bit of a reset on the coalition side around where they're targeting some of their, the news grab that they are afforded each night, the level of attention, which is pretty minimal, that households are going to be paying to the election, really targeting that message. And I've got absolutely no doubt Jim Chalmers, Anthony Albanese and the government are going to be focused on the same. So a real fight for the households.
It is. It is this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I don't think anybody's got anything else much on their mind. I think, interestingly, climate change, all of those sorts of things have just they're still there in the back of everyone's mind, but it's just living. It's day-to-day living.
Yeah. There doesn't feel like there's a almost sort of a referendum level of attention on responses to climate change like there was in the aftermath of the Black Summer bushfires. Not to diminish the issue or to
that's right.
Just in relative terms, it is quite remarkable how quickly it has been overshadowed by
household survival.
Yeah, well, bigger economic and geopolitical events, and then the impacts in the suburbs on household budgets due to that inflationary crisis. Western Australia's a trade exposed economy. We trumpet that as something that we're proud of. We're endowed with a very healthy mineral deposit across the state. We have a whole range of critical minerals and non-critical minerals that the world needs and our trading partners need. I heard some discounting of the impact to the tariffs proposed by the White House due to the fact that Australia, I think its trade consists of about 5% to the US, but I feel the reverberations are going to be something we're talking about and dealing with for a much longer period of time, and maybe it's a sign of things to come in terms of announcements out of Washington.
Yeah, I think the thing about this is that whilst the impact of today's announcement on Australia per se is minimal, it's not that. It's the global impact, and we're part of a global community, whether we like it or not. And it'll be like a stack of cards. It'll be like a stack of cards falling. If we don't end up in a global recession, I will be surprised because I can't see any other way out of this.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure post-election it's always hard to sort of get a sense of what the economic narrative is in response to these situation. It's hard to get that quickly at the best of times, but I think during an election campaign, there's probably not going to be too much bandwidth to discuss that. Will be fascinating to see how state governments, how our federal government, whoever it is going to respond to resetting Australia's position regionally and then globally.
The only thing is, I think this is an opportunity. So there was no heads up prior. Australia got the information and the Prime Minister got the information about the tariffs the same time everybody else did. Now, that smacks of not a particularly good relationship between Australia and the White House. And I think Dutton's already started on that, and I think that, I don't know, I've got no idea what his plans are, but I think we might see more of a focus on that lack of concrete, good relationship with Trump and the White House from the Prime Minister and his team. So I'm going to be interested to see how the next week or so play out in that regard, because I think Dutton will hone in on that. So I think that's one thing to watch. Because it's whether we like it or not, it's impacting on what's happening here, and I think will have a slightly bigger impact on the election maybe than we think.
Yeah, possibly. I think there's a perhaps the government and the Labor campaign are banking on the fact that it was broadly uniform, and there wasn't so much a queue. It was an audience that were getting served these tariff notices all at once. You're right. If there was a level of differentiation and maybe product to product or country to country, industry to industry, there was a level of discernment. I don't think that's a word thrown around in the White House too much these days, but it clearly the fact that this is more or less a universal policy has maybe softened the perception that Australia's been hard done by in relative terms against the rest of the world. But we'll continue to talk about it, no doubt, over the next weeks and months.
Absolutely. It'll be really interesting. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch because, what next? You'd have to ask out of the White House.
I couldn't possibly tell you. Yeah. So we will be back in a few weeks' time. We'll continue to take pulse of the federal election. We'll see state parliament return from next week onwards, and no doubt there'll be more pronouncements and announcements out of the White House that we'll need to take stock of. So looking forward to it.
And I think a few more from Albo and Dutton too.
Absolutely, no doubt.
I think we can look forward to plenty more of those, Pat. It's going to be an interesting few weeks.
Stay tuned. All right. Thanks, Libby.
See you. Bye.
Bye.